Welcome to Creative Risk.
Welcome.
This is David Zaslav, and you are?
Bob Iger.
Bob, how are you today?
Very good. Disney-rific, as we say in my morning neck of the woods.
Oh, boy. Oh, it's been very hard. Caviar, Bob?
I just got dizzy. Yes.
Caviar.
Oh, perfect.
Yes,
I'm going to take a piece of this ginger.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Feast. Feast.
Tastes like delicious children. I enjoy mumbling on.
Yes, exactly. I'm sure you do.
I do like to mumble on my children.
Oh, I bet you do.
I want to welcome our guests to Creative Risk, the podcast where you, David Zaslav, and me, Bob Iger, talk about art, entrepreneurialism, and everything in between.
And let's talk about why unions are just malarkey.
Malarkey!
Malarkey. Unions are, let me tell you something. Unions are anti-American.
Honestly, I mean, we're based in capitalism. Unions are trying to take the money away from our
basically
peoples.
Nazis.
They're basically Nazis. We're basically in the Third Reich.
Yeah, see, that's where we are. It's just god-awful. Bob?
Well, here's to you, David, and making billions more.
Yes. To our mega yachts.
You choke and die.
Oh,
That was very good.
that was good.
That was our auditions for David
We're
Zaslav and Bob Iger. But really, welcome us peons, us peasants, us nothings, us little minions, us disposable cogs in a wheel.
Exactly.
Us little actors and
Fodder,
actors.
cattle.
Exactly.
That's us.
As you could imagine, on today's episode of Creative Risk, where we talk about art, entrepreneurialism, and everything in between, we're obviously going to be talking about the strike.
The strike.
The strike.
What's that?
The strikes.
The strike sisters. When we talk about them strike sisters.
No, that's that.
No, I'm going to keep it. Anyway, so.
But yes, the strike sisters. Also, did you notice when I was doing my bob? That's my bob.
Yeah, that's great.
When I was doing my bob a few minutes ago, I got very lightheaded and dizzy. Did you see that?
Yeah, that's the most exercise you've got it.
My jowls.
Yeah.
No,
my jowls are really going there.
I think it's because that voice was using my full breath.
And what's unfortunate, until we get a fair deal, we will not be using our full breath for anything. For any
I'm going on a breath strike.
That's it.
I'm going to hold my breath until the strike's over, which I would be dead in a matter of seconds, because this has been how many fucking days have these strikes?
Like 180. No, 100. Some caviars in my throat.
Caviars. I like that your grocery store sushi is caviar.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what can I say? Yeah, it's like day 100 and I don't know.
Well. Just to be clear, they're different. So the WGA strike, as you just said, I think you said
the Writers Guild,
138,
138 or something.
and the
actors,
SAG,
I think, are like SAG's like. I think it's like 60 or something.
as of today.
Who knows?
Who knows where we'll be when we release
and we're
this.
so today's episode, we're gonna really kind of give our top level hot takes. I guess just throw up, just burp, disgusting. Burp.
Caviar.
Yeah, caviar. Yeah, we're gonna give you. It's been really hard for us actors. We're eating sushi and burping.
Okay, but before we get to the strike, which is we got to do our
favorite
popcorn
comfort food performances.
Okay.
Popcorn. Never mind. So, all right, I'll go first. Should you go first or I'll go first? We'll do.
You go first.
Comfort food performances. About to make such a bad joke.
I can already tell. This is
I
not
really
good.
can't make that joke.
This
It's
is
not good. I won't make it. Okay, so my I'll tell you that joke offline.
Okay.
So my comfort food performance, I didn't even think about this. I would have to say, John Travolta. What's up with me and Scientologists?
I don't know. It makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, then I would have.
You
I'm a
you
big
don't think
follower.
you'd be a Scientologist?
I'm a big sheep.
You would be a Scientologist.
I would.
You'd come in here one day and be like, man, listen, I got the whole thing.
Listen, I know I'm super gullible. You'd manipulate me all the time.
I gave him I literally went into my savings. I gave him $2,500. I've already moved up 2 tiers.
Yeah, exactly. I probably would. It's so right.
But you know what?
Yeah.
John Travolta, Tom Cruise,
Listen,
was your last one.
Listen,
These are some
that's
successful motherfuckers.
John Travolta. Okay, you know. Okay, Face Off. I'll just say it. You know, everybody's like, this guy's trash. Everything's. Have you ever seen Face Off?
No. I have not.
That's something you and Michael would like. Face Off. It's a '90s movie by John Woo, and it's about Nick Cage is in it. So it's Nick Cage and John Travolta. Nick Cage is a terrorist.
Nick Cage makes everybody better.
Yeah, exactly. Nick Cage is a terrorist who John Travolta is an FBI agent. He's hunting him, and a long story short, they capture Nick Cage, but then they need to find out where this bomb is, so they swap faces. So they capture Nick Cage and they take his face off and they put it on John Travolta's body, and they take Nick Cage. This is one of the biggest action movies ever made. It's an incredible movie.
Okay. And you're saying John Travolta's performance specifically
Excellent.
in that and not
Listen.
Hairspray the musical?
Yeah, exactly.
Did you even see that?
No.
Of course.
No, I'm not a homosexual.
Homosexual.
I'm not a homosexual.
Homosexual. But I also don't like movie musicals. I really don't. Michael wanted to watch Theater Camp the other day, the one with Ben Platt and Noah Galvin.
Yeah.
That one. I'm like, I know it's not even a movie musical. I don't. Why are they singing on screen? I can buy singing on stage. I can't buy singing on screen. Anyway,
Yeah.
Face Off. You love.
I
John
could buy
Travolta.
singing on stage.
Well,
But when it's on a screen, it's no more.
I can't. I really can't get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really seen a one that's like a great
Chicago.
one.
Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago's good.
Chicago's
But anyway,
great.
John Travolta, Nick Cage, Face Off. Listen, for our one straight member watching this, one straight male person watching this.
Why only
podcast,
one?
Because who's watching this shit?
What straight men watch Creative Risk is bullshit.
They're watching Joe Rogan.
Yeah. See, Mike is watching Joe Rogan.
We just have a sponsorship for like testosterone. It's like, and by the way, anyway, who cares?
This cannot become an alt-right podcast. I want to be really clear about that. This cannot become an alt-right podcast.
That would be niche-y.
That
would be niche-y.
Okay, here's my performance.
Okay, let's hear it.
I know. It's really fresh because I watched it last night, and you know I have a bad memory, so it's lucky that I remember this performance.
It's just anything you saw recently. So
Exactly. I was watching CNN this morning, and I watched Worth last night, which Michael Keaton, Stanley Tucci. It's actually a good cast, and both of them are great. But wait, you've never heard of this movie?
No,
I hadn't either. So basically, it's based on a true story about.
I'm thinking of Precious, which is not that.
It was a remake, and Michael Keaton plays. No, so Michael Keaton plays. I forget his name, but he plays a lawyer who was pretty high up, and was in strong ends with the government, and was basically tapped. And he went for the gig. This guy in real life, and who Michael Keaton played, to basically decide how much money people would receive for the lives lost in 9/11. So he was the guy essentially naming the value of life. And that's why it was a tough job. But anyway, in terms of
like $1.
I forget. I really can't even remember what they settled on. But Michael Keaton is so good in it. Yeah. And so is Stanley Tucci, by the way, who's always great.
Who did he play?
He played
Osama bin Laden. He
played the guy. So it was called. Jesus Christ! This is gonna be we're gonna get canceled.
Yeah, we are.
Episode 2. What is this episode?
Josh is kicking me underneath the screens.
No. He played like the guy who was against, because it was a fund. It was like the 9/11 fund, and he ran something called Fix the Fund, which was. And all the people were looking for, by the way, wasn't a numerical value. They were just looking to be seen and understood.
Right.
And so Michael Keaton, by the way, in the movie does that. But it was such a hard job, obviously. And Michael Keaton's performance was so restrained and nuanced and interesting. And I also had never heard of the movie. And so it was just like really great to see these two great actors doing their great things in it.
That sounds
so
nice.
Michael Keaton, that's
I'll
my
watch
guy.
it. And
That's
so Stanley
my guy.
Tucci was like the evil lawyer who didn't want to give the 9/11
No,
victims any
actually
money.
not. He played like this. He had lost his wife in the attacks, and he played some guy, this intellectual who basically was leading the revolt against what the U.S. government was doing. It was called Fix the Fund, and so he was very calm. Whenever he'd see Michael Keaton, he'd be like, "I'm the person who is trying to bring down your efforts." Like he was pretty
interesting.
Because again,
it wasn't personal. It wasn't personal.
It wasn't personal.
Well, it was kind of personal.
Well, what they were looking for, and this was Michael Keaton's journey in the movie, was his coming to simply empathize with the victims, as opposed to try to put numerical value on them. And he started talking to them and listening, and then Stanley Tucci's character gives him his full support, and then everyone comes on, and he gets all the signatures and the da-da-da-da-da.
Speaking of, valuing human life, let's talk about the strike.
Let's do it. But seriously,
Stand up.
That's a great segue.
No, that is a great. Well,
I'm just
excuse
so
me, bitch.
good. I know.
Yeah,
That was me.
well,
No, that was
I'm
me.
the one who did it.
Honey, I'm the one. Honey,
You're like,
honey.
I'm so good at this. Bitch, I made the transition.
But I'm the one who gave the prompt for the transition.
You didn't. You probably did plan it out like that. Anyway, so okay, what? So
Well, okay, let me just tee up two things because I want to give before you jump in here.
one, we're anti-union.
So,
No, I'm just joking.
no, but I won't say who, but I told you my friend texted me the other day and was like, Mike's emails, and this is going to be a segue into how we're going to structure this episode, were very anti-union, which isn't interesting to me because.
So we're both union members.
But the reason I was going to have a preamble here that we're going to obviously talk some state of affairs, so to speak, in terms of the strike, and we're also going to talk about what you can be doing during the strike. And no, it's not meditate and read your favorite Chekhov. You know what I mean? That's not it. But
If you're doing that, you're an idiot.
you stupid idiot who reads Chekhov.
Yeah.
No, you know what we
Russian spy. You know what they're doing in Ukraine right now?
You're a communist.
Yeah.
No, but Mike has been sort of leading our picket line post, which has been our. You're gonna make a joke about how you stopped sending it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's okay.
But for a while, Mike was gathering the roundup of news regarding the strike. So he's gonna sort of lead this first half about sort of what the state of affairs is before we get to what you can be doing.
And I want to say something about that because this is going to be one of the very first things we talk about, which somebody's saying that my emails were kind of anti-union, which I do not know where I'm all for the unions. This is a good strike. We need to be doing this.
I'll tell you why.
Because it's such a vitriolic. There's a lot of anger. Like I said, we're both members of the union. There's a lot of anger, fear, hatred in this strike. There's a lot of emotional weight in this strike. And so if you're literally not just completely, at times I was like, oh, this seems, the WGA, it's balls in their court, it seems. It's kind of, all of a sudden you're anti, if you don't toe the party line and are out for blood every 5 seconds, it's like you're anti-union, which I think is fucking ridiculous. And I want to say this. If you look at even the difference happening with the auto workers right now, you go to the picket lines, you talk to the people from what I've seen the interviews, upset, they can't afford to live. There's not a hatred. There's not a complete rage that's overpowering. It's emotional appeal, sentimental appeal. But this strike is very on edge for both. But now, trust me, we're going to be talking majoritarily about what the studios have been doing wrong. But just because you don't fucking every 5 seconds you're singing the praises of the negotiating committees, which I think are making some mistakes, that means you're anti-union. That's insane. I pay my fucking dues. I could say whatever I want about the SAG-AFTRA negotiating committee. I pay my fucking dues. I'll say whatever I want.
Well, I don't think anyone.
Motherfucker!
I don't think anyone would say you shouldn't.
Yeah.
I think it's good. What I was just gonna say was I also think that a lot of our work promotes a lot of self-responsibility, and I think sometimes that can also potentially be misinterpreted as though it's anti-union, for example, which it's not.
There's a fucked up binary where it's like, if you say that, if you believe in radical ownership, that must mean that we must be saying there's nothing wrong with the business. We all know that there's a lot that's fucked up and wrong about this business right now. But that doesn't mean that radical ownership is not important over your results.
Right.
Yes, I'm not a complete idiot. I understand that there are things outside of our control, but what's useful is to take on radical ownership. So I just have to say that. Whatever, I get canceled, never work again. So we're going to talk majority about the WGA because really SAG is not probably going to make a deal until the WGA makes a deal. So because they've been in strike way longer. So just a couple of top level things just to talk about.
Yep.
As I said, it's been vitriolic. And this is a sign of the growing mistrust. And this is talked a lot about, like, in various outlets and, journalists are talking about just like there's no trust in Hollywood anymore. No trust. There's something, it's very strange. Like, you go online, you've seen social media. It's like people are rabid. But let's talk about what the studios and the execs are doing wrong. Remember this Iger? Remember when Iger did that thing in Sun Valley? I mean, what a fucking insane guy. I mean, he said, it's very disturbing to me. We talked about disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges we're facing, right? And like these people are basically ruining the business. This is not the time for them to strike. I mean, for Bob Iger to come out and say that in Sun Valley, and we're going to talk about kind of a lack of leadership throughout all of this, but vitriolic. And there was that Deadline article, too, that came out where they were like, basically an exec said, our strategy is to starve them out. Yeah. To make them lose their houses. I mean, just wild.
Well, look, I do just have to say, as, this is a really great example. That underlining our capitalistic hellscape. And look, I'm a capitalist. You're a capitalist. Is the culture we live in. There are lots of things I hate about it. It's not the fight I'm choosing to fight in this lifetime per se, even though I would argue that, as I've said to you, I do believe artists' strategy is sort of playing capitalism in its own game in support of artists, but that's a conversation for another time. I do think this is a great example where, for Bob Iger's position, I don't even think he thinks he's saying anything wrong. Of course, he wouldn't say it because he's going, what do you mean? This is the game. And in my opinion, this is part of what's sort of
it's about bottom lines.
Exactly.
While he's at, but just the lack of, it's important to say now, just the lack of, I mean, these executives are such poor business savvy during this time. Where is the PR? I mean, it's a PR nightmare for them. You're going to be in Sun Valley at a billionaire retreat talking about this. Right. It's just, how do you think in this more and more progressive climate we're in that you can get away with saying shit? I mean, it's fucking insane. And, and so obviously maybe not uncharacteristic, but the fact that they're vocalizing their inner thoughts, saying we're going to starve them out, we're going to do all this, crazy. And I have noticed on the other side, look, whether it's justified or not, Drew Barrymore getting basically fucking cyberbullied into, now look, I have no tears shed there. It's like, get your shit together.
Well, okay, but I just want to, but let's talk about this because Bill Maher did it, and Bill Maher doesn't give a shit. He's like, he's cyberbullying me. He doesn't care. Drew had that teary apology that she took down, but I want to talk about why they do that for a second, and why those people are considered scabs. So for Drew Barrymore, what do you? Because I am fascinated. Why would Drew Barrymore go, I'm going to go back into production?
Her reasoning, which I think it's honestly tone deaf. I don't think she was thinking. But her alleged reason, well, first off, they're under contractual obligation. They're not covered under SAG. They're not. So technically, there is a contractual obligation for them to do those shows.
The hosts.
Yes. But it's like unspoken where it's like they're not going to fucking get rid of Drew Barrymore.
Well, not only that, if the writers are on strike, though, then how?
It's all improv, all ad-libbed.
I understand, but that's
where it gets tricky.
For example, that's not what she was contracted for. So while I hear you, she was contracted to work with writers to do her show.
Oh, I don't think it was. I have no love lost there. I don't think she made a right move. But her argument was, I think number one, let's be real, it's probably money. And there's a great point somebody made where it's like, well, these stars have other options. She can go do a fucking Neutrogena commercial. She doesn't have to do her show again. You know what I mean? That's what they have. She was saying it was for IATSE, it was for jobs, for the other people who work on the show. It was she wanted to have work for them. I think that's partially true in her justification of it. But regardless of right, wrong, whatever.
Okay, I have an ignorant question. There are lots of projects that have been approved to continue on. Why couldn't they go that route
because they're produced through an AMPTP.
Got it.
So,
Got it.
and that's the thing I want to talk about with sort of the mistrust and the paranoia. I went to SAG. Duncan Crabtree Ireland did that whole thing on the interim agreement, and the interim agreement that SAG negotiating committee said 1,000 times, this is nothing. This hurts the AMPTP. They have thought it hurts, and yet you were on the call, and hundreds of actors they're going like, isn't this going to people freaking out about this interim agreement? People are just like, and I'm not saying it's bad, good, whatever, but it's a different energy in the air this time. People are militant because look, there's a lot to lose, but there's like this complete mistrust. It's like, oh, SAG's trying to fuck us over with this interim agreement. Doesn't that fuck everything up? And really, it's a negotiating tactic to put pressure on the AMPTP, which I actually think is a kind of a smart idea. They say, look, if these smaller companies can do it, you can do it, right? So it has nothing to do, but people are so mistrustful, earned or not, mistrustful about.
Distrustful.
What am I saying?
Mistrustful.
That's what I said.
Distrustful.
Oh, distrustful is the word? Who cares? So, but,
Or is it mistrustful?
Where is this? There's just this completely intense, and I think it's exacerbated by social media when the WGA went on strike.
I think you're right.
I am right. 20 years ago, there wasn't this. Social media wasn't what it is right now. There wasn't Twitter. There wasn't fucking Instagram. And, I just have to say one thing, about the WGA's memos, because the WGA has been sending out a lot of memos. They're intense. They're emotional. They're like, don't trust these people. Don't trust your agents. We can talk about the agents in a little bit, but don't trust your agents. Your agents are trying to turn you against the negotiating committee. And I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying it's sad that in Hollywood right now, nobody's trusting anybody. Nobody's trusting their bosses. Nobody's trusting the showrunners. Nobody's trusting their agents. Nobody's trusting the negotiator. There's just this aura. There's this energy of anger, dread, mistrust. Everybody's out to fuck us right now.
And let's go back for a macro vantage point for a second about why that is. This is nothing new in this regard. There's a lot that's at play in both of these strikes, but we are at an inflection point because the industry is changing primarily because of what's happening with tech. It's because it's AI,
it's all tech,
but it's also just
streamers.
Exactly. This has changed the landscape. And by the way, this is actually going to SAG for a second. Exactly. Fran Drescher's, she gave that great speech, and it really was a great speech. And partially why it was great was because she really clearly spoke to the fact that this is the number one thing. We're not in the same industry we were a couple decades
100%.
ago. So honestly, all parties involved, both sides, need to be open because I understand wanting to protect our likeness. I understand wanting to, that makes complete sense. However, there should at least be a willingness to hear the other side to go, here's what AI could do for us. And I'm not saying that people aren't doing that, by the way, but I am just saying that the industry has changed. Therefore, we all need to take a step back and go, wait, we almost starting from anew.
Everybody's in panic. The difference is executives alike, because their businesses are failing right now. And look, Fran Drescher's speech, great. Compare that to Sean Fain, the United Auto Workers guy.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying one's good or bad. But the emotion, the anger, I'm not saying that's bad, but there's something else in the air. This is an inflection point where people's emotions are very strong right now. The actors and the writers. It's a more of an emotional. It's more emotional, it feels. And I'm not saying for right, for wrong. I'm just saying that when the emotions are this high, and I think that's primarily the studio's fault. But when emotions are high, you can't negotiate from a place of good faith. And that's why we're 140 days. That's partially why we're 140 days into this, because neither side can negotiate with good faith right now. And one thing I wanted to say, two things I wanted to touch on. Dirty tactics. One of the things that sort of put us August 22nd, almost a month ago now, this thing almost seemed like it was coming to an end. And there was a lot of hope in the air. Remember, there was like those couple of weeks. By the way, they are talking tomorrow at the time. Yeah. So by the time this comes out, it was yesterday. So who knows? Maybe it'll all be over. But
Time
that I don't think so. But there was that moment, that string of like 2 weeks where they met like 4 times.
Yeah.
What stopped talks for almost a month?
It was leaks, right?
Well, it was the AMPTP had a counter proposal,
Uh-huh.
and they released it to the press and said, this is what we put on the table. Now, I don't know labor law, but apparently that is a violation to do that, because what were they trying to do in earnest? They were saying, we were just letting our position be known, and we just wanted to have everything on the table. What they were really trying to do was, because the deal...
Drum up support
from members, from WGA members, to lean on the negotiating committee and say, hey...
The court of public opinion is a very real thing.
Look...
It's why courts around the world use it. It's why Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, that was...
Sure.
The court of public opinion. Anyway, yes.
And also amongst members, because if I'm a writer and they release a proposal and I'm like, that seems reasonable, I lean on my negotiating committee and I say, make that deal.
Right.
Make that deal. Right. And then that basically, the WGA was furious, released a memo that was like, they're trying to fuck, blah, 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 blah. A very heated memo to their membership. Right. And then talks stopped for 4 weeks. Yeah. So that was one of the main reasons why we're here right now, is because the AMPTP made that choice that probably was a way to sort of put pressure. It definitely was. I don't think they were doing it out of the goodness of their heart. It was a business move, a political move that backfired in their face. So that's where we are right now. And I just want to say this to kind of go towards the end of this and we're going to talk about, but let's talk about why I don't think leadership has been great on either side, particularly in the studios. But let's talk about the WGA first. And I want to read this direct quote from one of our favorite sources, Richard Rushfield at The Ankler. He says, for the last 4 months, what we've heard from the WGA largely has been about the process, the procedure, the tactics of a strike, and accusing the studio of violating the norms of all of those. It's really time to move past arguments about processes starting now. For instance, if they want the industry to stand behind them to the tune of many giving up a year of pay, they need to be a lot more open and forthcoming about what this strike is about. If the holdup now is about data transparency, let's hear about that. Let's discuss it. Let the community see clearly who is right and who is wrong. Talking and arguing about that is a serious discussion for a serious moment. But since this thing has started, we've barely heard 2 words about the issues, which is very true, beyond both sides showing their shopping list of positions on a few dozen issues. So basically what he's saying, which has been true, and this has been the WGA tactic from day one, they're not talking much to the press or even to their members about where exactly negotiations stand at any given moment and what the big sticking points are. That's been a tactic of theirs. But we're 100 and whatever days in right now, and they're still, rightfully or wrongfully, spending most of the time saying the studios are trying to fuck us, the studios are trying to pull dirty tricks, they're violating these, it's their turn, we sent a counter proposal, it's their turn 2 weeks later, the ball's still in their court.
Okay, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Because if I'm negotiating anything, I'm going to keep it insular, tight. I don't want to, because then... So I imagine it is a tactic. What is an example of what the WGA could share?
Exactly what the sticking points are right now. Why? What are them? It's probably data transparency. I don't even think it's probably data transparency in the mini rooms. Those are probably the 2 big sticking points right now. Let's get exactly why. Because for the first 2 months, sure, be insular, but people are losing their houses. We need to understand exactly what is being disagreed upon and what we are still fighting for exactly. Because look, they've agreed on a few things at this point. It's probably a couple of sticking points. Where do we stand on those issues? And when people are losing their houses, that's just it's just a different thing. I agree with you overall, but we're 100 whatever days into this. I just think there's got to be a little bit more openness, and I think it would look good on them to stop, because rightfully or wrongfully, probably rightfully, they're doing a lot of finger pointing, saying they're doing dirty tactics. We sent a counter proposal, they didn't get it to us, blah blah blah. They did it. It's like, listen, even if you're righteously angry, be the bigger person.
Mm-hmm.
Get them to the table.
Mm-hmm.
You know, do what your job is. You're a negotiating committee. You're not the anger. You know, you're not the anger police. Get the negotiations going here. You know, be the bigger person. Try and show up to I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, get them to the table. Get them to the fucking table. And I don't care. Meet with them every day if you have to. You know, stop this sort of vitriolic finger pointing. But let's.
What I really hear you saying, and I think it's a good point. You know, is both sides have a responsibility to see this thing through to the end. That's going to be a positive outcome for AMPTP and of course WGA.
And the fact that it's almost 150 days and we're still here is a
Right.
failure
Right.
of the
On both
negotiating
sides.
committees.
On both sides.
But let's talk about really where, I mean, the executives of these studios.
Right.
Talk about poor leadership.
Right.
I mean, really, it is absolutely insane. Zaslav and Iger are doppelgangers. When they want to get things done, they can get things done. They go above people's heads all the time. They push deals. You know, Zaslav pushed through the Discovery, Warner Media, and he can't make this work? Come on. Iger, same thing. And what's crazy about Iger and what he's doing is he has ruined his legacy. He's ruining his legacy.
I know he came back to save the day.
He came back and he was very talent friendly.
Yep.
And he is just single-handedly ruining his legacy. And let's speak about this. They are the ones who undermined the whole business model. We are in this position because of them and their decisions.
Right.
They made a mistake. They put all their eggs in the streaming basket and they fucked up. And it's not a viable business because you need 800 million subscribers.
Right. Well, now you're talking to the business model as a whole being unsustainable.
And they killed their fucking linear cable channels. They killed their linear cable channels to rush towards this. This is their fault. Mm-hmm. They fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They fucked up. They made a bad business decision.
And now they're trying to make it work. And this is the point of the strikes, off the backs of all of us who are actively losing
money.
And
they're going back and forth between, Netflix's stock is up again because Netflix has always been steadfast, at least in what it does. Most of these executives are big backflat. Oh no, we want the linear channels. Oh, even though they're screwing up left and right. So we're there, and the fact that you're fucking up and you're not taking care of your people, I mean, take a fucking pay cut. How hard is it? Well, as a good faith measure, I don't
talk about PR and press. If Bob Iger
stupid.
If Bob Iger said, you know what, I just want to say I'm announcing today that I'm taking a $5 million pay cut. First of all, $5 million for Bob Iger is $500 for us. So just to say, a $5 million. If he were to say, I'm going to take X, Y, or Z pay cut. I'm such a genius, which is why I was talking about that movie with Michael Keaton, because it's the same question. How do you put the value of people's lives? How do you put that number or their creative work? And I just want to say, this is, I was debating saying this because I don't want to get blowback for this, but I am going to say it because you made a comment about the emotionality of these strikes. And it relates to this. I do, and creative work and putting a numerical value on that. I do think that artists in particular, we know how hard this is. We know how, and I think oftentimes look for reasons as to why the needle hasn't moved more. And I'm saying this because the heat that we're feeling, both from the writers and actors, again, valid. But I think being intensified by frustration of not understanding how to even fend for themselves, let alone create their pathways. Like these people the Igers are sitting on infrastructures. We're just floating amoebas. And I think that's incredibly frustrating. And I think that's a big part of the emotion that's also fueling a lot of the frustration that almost has some of which has nothing to do with what they're dealing with. Does this make sense?
Well, no.
I'm not being anti-union.
It's unsustainable. And look, as we're going to talk about in a little bit, there's a lot we can be doing now.
That's right.
Despite of whether or not something's shooting or not. And we have to find. Look, right. We have to find our boogeymen. But let me say this about the execs, where they're way off, obviously. Because look, I'm not. When people say, "What do these people do?" Listen. There's a reason why there's not many executives in the world. It's because not a lot of people. It has nothing to do. It has to do with demand. Not a lot of people can do an executive's job. I am not going to sit here and pretend that Bob Iger doesn't deserve a lot of fucking money, or David Zaslav doesn't deserve a lot of fucking money. However, what I will say is when your businesses are bleeding out, you should be the one who gets a fucking pay cut. Like,
right.
It's just
well, Mike,
take
listen,
ownership.
When Artist Strategy, when we have our slow months, which we have, had plenty of times where we're like, okay,
we don't get paid.
Yeah, there have been plenty of months where we're like, okay, we're not getting paid because we have to pay our vendors or our whatever the hell it is, and that's the way it goes.
And so they just look bad. It's just like they look bad. They look bad as their companies are bleeding out. Yep. That they are getting bigger pay packages. Take a 5%, take a 10% cut. How hard, even if you don't mean it. Just, it's smart business.
I agree.
And so these executives, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I think it's, but this is what I mean, is I think people are thinking with their fucking emotions and they're not thinking with just good business sense. I don't know what's going on.
On both sides.
On both sides. No, I mean, look, obviously, look, this is, we are, as we say all of this, I think that it's a shame that you can't just have an open and frank discussion about everything, that we have to keep saying we're pro-union. Obviously, we're pro-union. We are union members. But, obviously this is mainly the executive. This is mainly their problem that they set up. They fucked, and even if some of the demands might be a little weird, or a little, I don't necessarily agree with all of the demands. Let me say that. I don't necessarily agree with all of them. But at a certain point, it's about good business. Even if you don't agree with some of the demands, if it puts a 1% dent in your fucking thing, just take it. Just take it, And so,
should we pivot to, or do you want to do a little more?
No, well, I just want to say, actually, no. I don't really want to say anything else except, this is going to have major repercussions. People are losing their houses, moving out of Los Angeles, moving out of New York. Next year, let's say that they strike a deal tomorrow, September 20th. Production's not picking up again until January. I mean, this is delaying. So there's going to be, next year is going to be bad too. Next year's going to be hard too. I mean, think about what this is going to do for, even as who cares who watches these days, but the Oscars award season, it's going to be next year is going to be an interesting year. Let me just say that in terms of what's happening. And I hope that this is resolved soon. And I hope that these people can both sides can engage in good faith and try to make this business work together. Yeah. And look, that's their job. The reason why I could say it's on both of them is because that's their fucking jobs. That's what they're getting paid for. They're negotiating committees. Figure it the fuck out. Period, point blank, the end. Right. Figure it out. That's your job.
Well, to your point about the, bad business, good business, so the second half of what we want to talk about are the things that you can do during this moment. And I just want to say, I called the Brian Lair show last week, and I did because the prompt was, what he was saying was, we want to hear from writers and actors that are striking. Did you have to pick up any, gig work in order to survive? And my comment, I called it, I said, what's ironic about the question, and it's a pivot to where we're headed now, is that, this moment, this strike is underlining so much of what we talk about. When Fran Drescher said, only 14%, I always keep quoting this, I quoted this last time too, but only 14% of SAG members qualify with earning enough money to qualify for insurance, which is $26,000 or something like that. Only 14%. This underlines exactly the problem that we have been facing for a very, very long time.
Before the strike.
It is untenable, unsustainable. This is nothing new. It's not like we're like, oh my gosh, all of us. No, I just think the conversation is being pushed more to the front lines, which is what I was said on when I called in. I was like, look, what do you mean gig work? We'll talk about money another time, or really secondary income and all that another time. But the fact of the matter is that we are in the business of losing our jobs, and not only that, we hear actors all the time who say, "I just want to make a living from my art," and there are plenty of actors who do that, right? And I do consider myself one of them, but not solely by my art. Obviously, it's near impossible in a lot of ways.
Well,
and that's a hard truth.
And I think that what's also kind of ironic about the question, it's like, what are you even doing right now? You can't go to set, so what are you even? It's like, bitch, like, it's like, yeah. Oh, like that's all we do is like, oh, I wait around all day until I get called to set, and if I don't get called to set or if I'm not auditioning, I have no. It's like, please, that's if we're lucky, 15-20% of the time, if that, of what actually we're doing. So the implication, the implicit implication in what that question is what are you even doing? What do you even do during the strike? It's like that there's nothing to do. It's like if only that was the job. If only the job was only to go to fucking do my auditions, go to fucking set. If only that was my job, that would be what? Wouldn't that be the dream? That's 1% of fucking people on the planet. That's their job.
But to your point, what we are hearing lots of people say is like, use this time to brush up on your material, read a book, go to the park with a friend.
As the industry we know it is
crumbling. It's crumbling to the ground.
The acting class is really gonna solve the problem. Yeah, doing my scene from Hurly Burly. At Pearl Studios is really gonna help, as literally the industry as we know it is crumbling to the fucking ground. I mean, this is
how I got dizzy again. What's going on,
bitch?
I pass out. Yeah, you keep going. Anyway, so
okay,
folks.
Anyways, yeah, let's talk more about why I hate unions.
So. Okay, so here's the thing. We're going to talk about things you can do, and we can't even go through all this because I don't just want to list out shit. We've got so much that you can be doing during this moment. So we're just going to talk top level.
Okay, let's do it.
So we got this in front of us, and we're going to talk about some of this. Let's talk about, forget clarifying goals. You can always clarify goals. But let's talk about casting cultivation, because I actually do, and I did actually, I won't say a name, but I did have I want to talk about a counter to this thought. But here's the point. Casting cultivation, which we can get into more in a longer time. Let me just say this. They're out of work. They're not working.
Well, remember, you showed me this. Some very prominent, I would say a very prominent casting person posted on their IG story.
Oh, my God.
That was bad. They posted some like, hey friends, I'm desperate for work. I'll cast
anything.
Well, I'll cast anything. And listen, no. And as many people will virtue signal, it's like they are suffering too. This is their business too.
I'm not
I
even mocking them.
I just don't think you should show weakness online. But
come on, Trumpy.
Just never show weakness. No,
I did, it was a bizarre move. I'm not really a fan of. I mean, that's like when actors are like, I just need a gig. Can someone cast me? Don't. That's not cute. Don't do that.
If you do that, you're a loser.
Loser. He's a loser.
Yeah, he's a loser.
we slowly but surely we have like pictures of Trump.
Yeah, exactly, all over the place.
We can't even really joke. People are gonna think that we're like big Trumpers.
Well, they're fucking idiots. I don't know what to tell them. If they think that
but anyway, the real point that you're making is like these people are out of work too. They're not casting anything. Why do we say this? Send an introduction email. Say hello. Ask for a general. Not everyone might be doing generals, but you can use this time to engage and say, hey, we've never had the opportunity to get to know one another.
Can I take you out to lunch? Can I take you to see a show?
Exactly.
And I would argue, hire put money in somebody's pocket. I mean, they're literally saying, I don't have work. Do a panel for your alma mater, for your fucking acting class. Bring somebody in for $100.
Have them lead a self-tape workshop with you and 6 of your friends.
Absolutely. Have them coach, hey, I want to I want to brush up on my audition. Do you know how happy probably, especially associates and assistants would be if you reached out and you said, hey, can I pay you a couple $100? We could coach some tapes just so I can like use this time to stay sharp, and how much you're endearing yourself to that person. I mean, that would be big, so including general intros, using this opportunity as people are sitting around, they don't have anything to do, to introduce yourself. Of course, better if you can get somebody else to do it, name drop, whatever. Get creative. Think about ways you can put money in people's pockets right now. And yes, that's very hard. This is a hard business. I don't know what to tell you.
Exactly. I just want to say something about material. It's a little basic, but how often or not do we hear people complain about their material? Oh, I need to get new this. I need my reel could be better. We just did a workshop last night with Lilac Mandelovich on maximizing your reel's potential using self-tapes, which is, the thing of this moment. So yes, knit the sweater a couple weeks from now. If you need to get your material together so you can hit the ground running as soon as this strike is over, use this time to do that. Go get that content together. Finally edit it. You want to get new pics? You want to update? Whatever the heck it is. Apparently we're sitting around just, waiting for it to go back to set anyway. Might as well put some time into it.
Exactly. And this next point I think is interesting, which is, packaging and pitching. Especially, theater actors, there's just no excuse,
Right, of course.
There's just no excuse, just keep doing it, keep fucking going here.
And this, but let's be clear on what this is. So just like any project, as one could imagine, really doesn't matter. On any level ever, there is a consideration for who is going to do what, all the way down to high school. Oh, little Timmy's the big star. We're going to make Timmy Seymour in Little Shop because everyone loves little Timmy. It doesn't matter. That's just the way of the world. You have a following that means something. So what Mike's talking about in terms of packaging and pitching is film, a play, musical. Get behind a project yourself. Spearhead and specifically consider how you could package the project to then take to people, producers, a small theater company, a big theater company, a director you're wanting to
or
work
even
with.
Your friends. If you know a couple of people who are doing very well, if you have connections and everybody knows somebody in this business who has heat, collaborate with them. They're sitting around. Say, hey, I'd love to develop a project with you. I'd love to develop a feature with you. Are you passionate about anything? Let me spearhead it.
Let me give you an example. A writer in a writer's room that have a show you're looking to work on.
Absolutely.
Well, they're not doing anything right now. Do you want to talk? You're not going to go against the unions to talk about a project for the future.
Well, you're not a what you call an AMPTP member, or, so you can absolutely approach a writer and say like,
well,
hey.
What I'm saying is people who are worried about self-producing in this moment, I'm like, you can have conversations
about
the
future.
future.
We're not necessarily producing anything. We're just having conversations.
Exactly.
Hey, I want to get people emotionally invested in your projects now. If you went to any sort of, school where there's maybe you have a couple classmates who did really well, say, hey, I'd love to do this play off Broadway. If you're in New York, like, let's rehearse it. Let's begin to workshop it. Like, go to those people now. They're not doing anything.
Exactly.
They're not doing anything. Go and approach them and pitch those. Start thinking about what projects you can start to attach bigger people to, and how you can get to them, basically.
Part of what you're talking about, which sort of takes us into the whole other area, is just relationship building in general. This is a relationship business. I'm sure that we will do an entire episode one day on just relationship building, because it really is in many ways the name of the game.
I'm putting so much shit in my body during this. I ate a whole thing of sushi.
And now what is this? The Red Bull?
The summer edition. Juneberry.
Okay, well, this is better. Sometimes you drink something like liquid cum death or something like that. You're like,
liquid cum death?
Which is coincidentally the name of my memoir.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but you really do. You drink like crazy shit. It's like nitro burned my kidney out.
Shit my prolapse anus. Shit bucket.
Oh my god, I got dizzy again. That's bad. Maybe I had too much coffee.
I think you need to drink water or something. That'd be good.
I've got my sugar-free
well, there you go.
Orange vitamin water.
Rise orange.
Everybody rise.
Is that an LGBTQ thing or something?
I've got behind me. I've got my original company.
There you go. That's an LGBTQ.
And I've got Mike. Not to be tangential, but this is Coco, starring Katharine Hepburn.
Of course. Because she played Coco Chanel.
Okay, but how do you know about that musical?
I know my Broadway history, bitch.
You don't know that musical.
Bitch, I'm a show queen.
And this was my first musical I ever saw on Broadway, 1998. Annie, Get Your Gun. It was also Michael's musical that first that he
And you're
saw.
afraid people are going to think we're Trumpers? Is that what you're afraid of? Yeah. This is Annie, Get Your Gun.
With my queen Bernadette.
We hate the unions.
Pro AMTP.
Pro AMPTP.
Pro AMPTP.
This is by Annie, Get Your Gun, scripted by Rise.
Oh, you can't get a man. Okay, so relationship building. So just to say something top level during this moment, where we believe in active cultivation, maintenance of your community as much as you possibly can. Now is the time to engage. Now is the time to expand, which is why it's a good dovetail off of what you're saying. You want to make new connections. You want to meet people, reach out to them, especially in this moment. We live in such a busy world. So expansion, and this could include all kinds of people, right? Writers, directors, producers, casting, other actors, filmmakers. Film is such a community-driven industry, more so in a lot of ways than we could argue television.
Nothing's stopping you from continuing to cultivate people, check in on people. How are they doing? Add value, as we always say. Take people out to coffee. Go see their show. Watch their short. Watch the movie
I like this one, Mike. Organize a strike working group. That was more specific for actors, but I like that.
Absolutely.
Well,
I think we should read all of these ideas.
All right.
Writers are out of work. How can you provide value? Do you commission someone to write something for you? You mentioned that, a writer assistant, something like that. Pay somebody $200. Listen, we're not Bob Iger. We don't have money, but do you offer something substantial for you? Do I pay somebody $250 to write a short for me?
Exactly.
What a value add on a show that you want to be on. Do you see if you know any mutual connections who'd be willing to connect? Do your research. Who do you know who's in writers' rooms? Do you know anybody who knows anybody? Do your research. Do your reconnaissance. Do you create a panel, do a blog series, IG Live talking to them? I mean, one of the things that, I thought would have been really smart during this time, it's like, I'm going to talk to a writer every week about what their time's like during the strike and make a blog, do something like that, or talk to them on your IG Live. I don't know.
I also love this idea of all these events, meaning in this moment when people are feeling so stuck, do you provide opportunities for events? Do you do screening events? In your home, you get 10 people together and you project a movie on a wall once a week.
Well, I like this idea. Do you hire someone to run a writing workshop? How many people want to write TV shows? Like, how many actors? I have a pilot, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Chip in with a couple of people, pay a young writer to fucking host a workshop. How are you providing value? You. Director's out of work, Do you hire somebody to run a scene study class or an on-camera class, a director who works a lot? Do you hire someone to direct a reading or hear a play out loud or do a read, How are you providing value? Producers, pitching is something you can still do during this time to producers. We're not multi-million-dollar entities. We don't have to, we're not causing problems by doing that. Filmmakers, exactly, the screening series, watching movies, watch shorts.
Then just email people. I liked your movie. It is very simple. No
headshot resume attached.
God.
No headshot resume attached. Just start watching people's work and supporting it. Easy.
And I want to say something about what you're just saying. It's important. This is a great example. Long-term over short-term. What do I mean by that? A lot of these efforts might seemingly feel like they go into the abyss sometimes. And you know what? Sometimes they might. But other times, people might just not respond. It doesn't mean that it won't add up to something in the future to reach out, introduce, and compliment.
Exactly. So, a lot of stuff. I like, open mics, parties, barbecues, social events, cocktail party. You're creative. Get creative.
Period.
There's a lot of stuff we can be doing right now. Financial management.
Yeah, I mean, it's these kinds of moments, the pandemic did it too, where what comes to light, what's really underlined is how unstable all of this is. Because obviously, per your point about projects getting back into production even in the next year, even if we were to come to a deal sooner rather than later, the weeks needed to earn coverage for insurance, to a lot of people aren't going to be going back to work. They're going to be back out of work for a very long time.
Or and dollar amount needed to be earned for SAG or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, you need to work to get insurance.
And so a macro question for all of us is, what lessons are we taking away now? What do we need? Meaning, do we need a stronger financial base as is? Does this underline the need for that secondary income stream that we've been knowing that we finally have to get off the ground again?
I would say getting into the habit too of, getting your foundations in place, budgets, plan. What's October's budget? November's budget, December's budget, starting to get in the habit of maybe building projected budgets, tracking your actuals every single week. I mean, you can get your financial house in order, right? Like,
Exactly. No. I mean, I think when it comes to, such a personal approach to what you can do in this moment based off of your circumstance, but most importantly, just don't bury your head in the sand with it. What part of what we're trying to underline is that you actually have the time and the space, whether we wanted it to or not, to better prepare for the future. And I just want to say, a lot of times, and this is why we're doing a whole episode on this, I think a lot of artists have a tendency to duck and cover and just sort of, weather the storm and not necessarily use it as a way to step into the next iteration of what they want their lives to be, if not quit, because they feel so disempowered.
Absolutely.
And by the moment. Let's talk a little bit more about self-producing, though, in relation to this, because you're sort of talking about it in terms of, we've had people ask us, should I produce? Number one, that's what the SAG waiver is for. I mean, there are hundreds of projects now.
Yeah, and it might take a while to get an interim agreement. So,
exactly.
There's a backup. But listen, start now. I mean, just you can absolutely get a project together and send that interim agreement if you're going to use SAG actors. If you're not using SAG actors for whatever reason, then you don't need a SAG waiver.
And let me say something kind of niche here, separate from even the idea of just self-producing work. A big part of what we believe is that, along with self-producing, is that you're growing a circle of financial backers, that you can go back to over and over again, like any business would, considering, who are my investors and donors.
Right.
And so do you use this moment to target and cultivate for the projects to come in 2024?
Your mom's dentist.
Exactly.
I mean, literally.
Yes, exactly.
Or doing your research. Who's investing in projects similar to projects you have in mind? And I think what's interesting here is top level. This is another responsibility we have. When you are raising money, it is your job to paint a vision for your investors or donors, profit or nonprofit, doesn't matter. You need to paint a vision. So this is right now, we're in a turmoilic. It's a turmoilic time. Turmoil time. You know what? There must be I guess you would say, like, I was going to say voluptuous.
We're in a moment.
That's not the word.
No, we're in a moment of turmoil.
Moment of turmoil. What's that word? Anyway, whatever. I was going to say voluptuous. That's not the word. But we're in a very troubled moment.
Yeah.
But listen, one thing I will say is that in moments like these, there's always opportunity. People have been saying that for thousands of years. In moments of the darkest moments, there's opportunities. In fact, there are more opportunities in the darkest moments. That's true. That's true. Let me tell you something. No, but so, there are opportunities right now, and it is on us as small business owners
to take advantage
and to understand where this business is going and how are we getting ahead of it. You need to understand that, and that's essential. We can do that right now.
In terms of craft, yes, I know everyone's like, take a class, but I want to offer something unique, a unique approach to
idiots.
This. I work with a lot of people who, or even hear from a lot of people who say, I don't know what's going on. I get so close and I don't quite stick the landing. I can't quite book. I'm not quite getting called in enough. So from a craft perspective, sure, you could go back to your favorite acting teacher's class, and that can feel really good because you're being creative and you're doing the work. Or if you are one of those people who's confused as to what's happening, what if you used this time to solicit some feedback?
Absolutely.
Send a questionnaire to 15 people.
Reach out to an office you get called in for a lot, but maybe you don't book, or
do an audit.
Maybe do an audit. Do a little audit. Reach out to your agents, right? What are
previous collaborators? What worked well? What could I do better in my tapes? What could I bring more to the table? Is there an element of my craft that I should be sharpening? How can you not again just, go pop back into the same acting class you've taken for the past 7 years in a row because it feels like you're moving the needle? Maybe it's actually time you do something else entirely new to really sharpen your tool set.
I won't even add to that. Yeah.
Marketing. Listen, our core beliefs.
Listen, you little sluts.
Well, here's where I think this is always relevant, and it's certainly relevant now. Our core beliefs when it comes to marketing, at the top level, breaking through the noise and staying relevant, and easier said than done.
Listen, do as we say, not as we do. Let me tell you something.
Exactly.
Well, it's very hard. Well, marketing is very hard, but I'll tell you what is interesting right now. Getting clear about brand. Mm-hmm. This is a hiatus. Hiatus, girl. This is a time where you can potentially get sharpen elements of your public persona, right? Transform yourself. Understand what your unique values are and what you are bringing to the table that is unique. And a lot of times when we hear people who finally understand, when we work with people who are doing brand building, they're like, oh shit, I need to lead with these elements more of myself. I need to put this out there more. It can often feel like very scary because it's a harsh makeover.
Right.
All of a sudden it's kind of, this is the kind of content I'm putting out, or this is the kind of look I'm going after. This is the time.
Right.
This is the time to transform yourself. This is the time to get very clear and specific about your brand, and then to understand how that translates into your public-facing persona.
Based off of who it's for. This is the next step I would say. You can use this time. Who is my work for? Who this is work that we get into in a much deeper sense, and we're going to do an episode on a marketing episode soon. But who is your work for? Who is your owned audience? That is the power of what it means to be an artist in 2023, is developing an owned audience.
And again, this is the listen, as we are finding out, Hollywood is untenable.
Yep. So
grow your own thing. Now is the time to continue to think about, that's not my job. Okay, then die. I don't know what to tell you.
Then die.
Then starve to death. Just like they want you to do. Show them, do them wrong. Thrive.
And finally, there's a lot of details in all of what we're talking about, but the final one we talk about is just more to sort of like your day-to-day in this regard. We really are all about systems, but it's because we do believe productivity is and how we manage our work and our workflow day to day is whether or not we'll be successful or not, whether that's accountability, organization, just general workflow, time management, whatever it is. What are those pieces for you? I always encourage people I work with, just stay curious. It's not that you have to have the answers tomorrow. It's about going, it was helpful for me when I put things in my calendar, when I had an accountability partner. Use this time to essentially build
clear about your work
infrastructure of your business. And probably going back to the first episode we did, get the mind right.
Right.
As you come out of this, how are you stepping out of the strike into a next iteration of your creative career where you feel empowered, emboldened, confident, ready to go?
And if you can be proactive during these times when everybody's so rightfully so, again, not trying to sound insensitive, but just speaking, if I'm allowed to talk. Can I speak?
If not, die.
Yeah, exactly. Die? No. But if you can be proactive during these times, when many people have no hope, when people are not seeing a viable way forward, if you can be one of the people who keeps going, is consistent, continues to own your side of the street as a small business owner. When businesses, it's funny, the pandemic, businesses that survived went, this has ruined everything. How do we adapt and continue? Because that's what a business is supposed to do.
Right.
A business takes on radical ownership. It has nothing to do with emotions, personality, or ego. A business needs to take. So if you can, during this time when most people are disheartened, hopeless, whatever, if you can be somebody who is hopeful, doing everything in your power to keep going, then imagine when times are good.
Right. Well, and also just what you'll represent for others in this
inspire people
in this moment, exactly.
Just like we're doing.
I mean, I guess I know that we might take a seemingly insensitive approach. I hope can they hear the
No, they won't. They won't hear you. No, they won't hear. No, but
but what I just want to say is that I'm a big believer in objectifying ourselves before the industry objectifies us. And what we're talking about here, when we're talking about AMPTP and what they're, let's put ourselves in their shoes, and not to empathize and say, yeah, they're right, but to go, okay, well, they don't give a shit about us, so we've got to give a shit.
We've got to give a shit, exactly. And I just want to say that we're not, you and I are both workaday actors. This applies to just as much to us as
people barely know who I am. No one knows who you are. I mean, we're just.
I mean, we both have work lined up for the rest of the year, but it's ha. No,
die,
die, idiots. No, but I just don't know. Like, you can't say anything. It's just like, look, the reason why we take this point of view is because it's for survival. It's
also,
for survival.
What is this point of view?
The point of view, that the radical ownership point of view. The fact that we're small businesses and that no matter what's happening in the industry, it's on our shoulders. That is.
Well, that's true, but if someone has a problem with that and wants to be spoon-fed, that to each their own. Listen, our approach is not for everybody.
This is what helps us survive and pay our bills.
Period.
Point blank, the end. And that's all I give a fuck about, dummy.
Okay, you guys, this has been a 9-hour episode.
Sign up for a free consultation.
This has been
so
a 9-hour
we can tell you what
episode
an idiot you are. No, that's not true.
They're
very helpful. Our clients love us.
Of Creative Risk, where we talk about art,
entrepreneurialism, and everything in between. Bob, I'll talk to you later. Okay?
See you later, Zaslav. Finally pass out. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share, of course, and subscribe. Rate, leave a review. Unless it's bad, then don't leave anything, but still send it along.
Scabs, don't leave that review.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, follow us on socials @artists.strategy. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thanks, David.